of breaking the habit of being yourself. Part 1. The Science of You. Chapter 1. The Quantum You. Early physicists divided the world into matter and though and later matter and energy. Each member of those pairs was considered to be entirely separate from the other. But they are not. Nevertheless, this mind matter dually shaped our early worldview that reality was essentially predetermined and that people could do little to change things through their own actions, let alone their thoughts. Fast forward to our current understanding that we are part of vast invisible field of energy which contains all possible realities and responds to our thoughts and our feelings. Just as today's scientists are exploring the relationship between thoughts and matter. We are eager to do the same in our own lives, and so we ask ourselves, can I use my mind to create my reality? If so, is that a skill that we can learn and use to become who we want to be and create the life we want to experience? Let's face it, none of us is perfect. Whether we'd like to make some change to our physical self, emotional self, or spiritual self, we all have the same desire. We want to live life as an idealized version of who we think and believe we can be. When we stand in front of the mirror and look out at our love handles, we don't see that slightly too pudgy vision reflected in the glass. We also see, depending on our mood that day, a slimmer, fitter version of ourselves or a heavier, chunkier version. Which of our image is real? When we lie in bed at night, reviewing our day and our efforts to be the more tolerant, less reactive person, we don't we don't just see the parent who lash out of our child for falling for quietly and quickly submit to a simple request. We envision either an angelic self whose patience was stretched like an innocent victim on the rack of the hideous augury laying waste to a child's self-esteem. Which of these images is real? The answer is all of them are real, and not just those extremes, but an infinite spectrum of images ranging from positive to negative. How can that be? for you to be better understand why none of those visions of self is more or less real than the others. I'm going to have to shatter the outmoded understanding about the fans' mental nature of reality and replace it with a new one. That sounds like a major understanding, and in some ways it is. But I also know this. The most likely reason why you were drawn to this book is that your past efforts to make any lasting change in your life, physical, emotional, or spiritual, have fallen short of the ideal of yourself that you imagined. And why those efforts failed has some to do with your belief and why your life is the way it is than with anything else, including a perceived lack of will, time, courage, or imagination. Always, in order to change, we have to come to the new understanding of self and the world so that we can embrace new knowledge and have new experiences. That is what reading this book will do for you. Your past shortfalls that can be traced at the root to one major oversight. You haven't committed yourself to living by the truth that your thought has consequences so that they create your reality. The fact is that we all bless. We all can reap the benefits of our constructive efforts. We don't have to settle for our present reality. We can create a new one whenever we choose to. We all have that ability because, for better or worse, our thoughts do influence our lives. I'm sure you have heard that before, but I wonder whether most people really believe this statement on a gut level. If we truly embrace the notion that our thoughts produce tangible effects in our lives, wouldn't we strive to never let one thought slip by us that we didn't want to experience? And wouldn't we focus our attention on what we want instead of continually obsessing about our problems? Think about it. If you really know that this principle were true, would you ever miss a day in intentionally creating your desired destiny? Oh hi, hello to Rio, Romy, Whitey. Hi, make a loud shout out. How are you? Have a great day to your side. So I'll continue this. To change your life, change your belief about the nature of reality. I hope this book will shift your view of how our world operates. Convince you that you are more powerful than you know and inspire you to demonstrate the understanding that what you think and believe has a profound effect in your world. Until you break from the way you see your present reality, any change in your life will always be haphazard and transitory. You have to overhaul your thinking about why things happen in order to produce enduring and desired outcomes. To do that, you will need to be open to a new interpretation of what is real and true. To help you shift into this mood of thoughts and begin to create a life of your choosing. I have to begin with a bit of cosmology, the study of structure and dynamics of the universe. But don't be alarmed, we are merely going to skim through the nature of reality 101 and how some of our views about it have evolved to reach our present understanding. All of this is to explain of necessity in a brief and simple way. How it is possible that your thoughts shape your destiny. This chapter just might test your willingness to abandon ideas that have, in a sense, been programmed into you for many years on a conscious and subconscious level. Once you gain a new concept conception of a fundamental forces and elements that constitute reality, it won't fit that old perception in which the linear and orderly rule day. Be prepared to experience some fundamental shift in understanding. Masud Bot, hello, hi, how are you? Make a shout out to you. Have a great day to your side and take care. So I'll go on reading on another page, page 5. Okay. In fact, as you begin to embrace this new outlook, your very makeup as a human being will change. It is my wish that you will no longer be the same person as you were when you were began. Obviously, I'm about to challenge you, but I want you to know that I am entirely empathic because I too have to had to let go of what I thought was true and leap into the unknown. To is what I thought to is this new way of thinking about the nature of our world. Let's see how our world was shaped by early belief that mind and matter were separate things. Always matter, never mind. Always mind, never matter. Connecting the dots between the outer physical world of the observable and inner mental world of thoughts has always presented quite a challenge to scientists and philosophers. To many of us, even today, the mind appears to have little or no measurable effects on the world matter, although we would probably agree that the world of matter creates consequences affecting our minds. How can our mind possibly produce any physical changes affecting the solid things in our lives? Mind and matter appears to be separate. That is unless there's a shift in our understanding about the way physical solid things actually exist. Well, there has been such a shift, and to trace its beginning, we don't have to go back so far. For much of what historians consider modern times, humanity believed that the nature of the universe was orderly and that predictable and explainable. Consider 17th century mathematician and philosopher Rene Descartes, who developed many concepts that still have great relevance to mathematics and other fields. Thus, I think, therefore, I am ring any bells? In retrospect, however, one of these theories ultimately did more harm than good. Descartes was a proponent of the mechanistic model of the universe. Descartes was a proponent of the mechanistic model of the universe, a view that the universe is controlled by predictable laws. When it comes to human thoughts, Descartes faced a real challenge. The human mind processes too many variables too neatly fit into any laws. since he couldn't unify this understanding of the physical world with that of mind, but he had to account for the presence of both. Descartes played a nifty mind game, pun, pun intended. He said that the mind was not subject to laws of the effective physical world, so it was completely outside the bounds of scientific inquiry. The study of matter was the jurisdiction of science, always matter, never mind. Whereas the mind was God's instrument, so the study of it to feel to religion, always mind, never matter. Essentially, Descartes started a belief system that imposed a duality between the concept of mind and matter. For centuries, that division stood as the accepted understanding of the nature of reality. Helping to perpetuate Descartes' belief were the experiments and theories of Sir Isaac Newton, the English mathematician and scientist, not only solidified the concept of universe as a machine, but he produced a set of laws stating that human beings could precisely determine, calculate, and predict the orderly ways in which the physical world would operate. According to the classical Newtonian physics model, all things were considered solid. For example, energy could explained as a force to move objects or to change the physical state of matter. But as you will see, energy is much more than an outside force exerted on material things. Energy is the very fabric of all things material and is responsive to mind. By extension, the work of the Descartes and Newton established as mindset that if reality operated on mechanic principle, then humanity had a little influence and outcome. All of reality was predetermined given that outlook. It is any wonder that human beings struggled with the idea that their actions mattered, let alone entertained the notion that their thoughts mattered or that three of us still labor today, subconsciously or consciously, under the assumption that we humans are often little more than victims. Considering that this cherished belief healed the way for centuries, it, it took some revolutionary thoughts to counter Descartes and Newton. Hi, Tangerine. This is a science. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. So I continue reading on page 8 because I'm getting before bed. I'm just reading so that I can sleep later. So it's on a page 8. Hi, Tangerine. Yeah, sure. Oh, good for you. You're studying psychology. Yeah, I can recommend this book is a good book, and there's a lot of resource information that you can learn here. And so I will just continue reading, okay? Einstein, not just rocking the boat, rocking the universe. About 200 years after Newton, Albert Einstein produced his famous equation E equals mc square, demonstrating that energy and matter are so fundamentally related that they are one of the and the same. Essentially, this work showed the matter and energy are completely interchangeable. This directly contradicted Newton and Descartes and ushered in a new understanding of how this universe functions. Einstein didn't single handedly crumble our previous view of the nature of reality, but he did undermine its foundation, and that eventually lead to a collapse of some of our narrow, rigid way of thinking. His theories set off an exploration of the puzzling behavior of light. Scientists then observed that light sometimes behaved like a wave when it bends around the corner, for example, and other times it behaves like particle. How could light be both a wave and a particle? According to our outlook of Descartes and Newton, it couldn't a phenomenon had to be either one of or the other. Quickly I became clear that the dualistic Cartesian Newtonian model was flawed at the most basic level of all. The subatomic refers to the parts of electron, proton, and neutrons, and so on, to make up atoms, which are building blocks of all things physical. The most fundamental component of our so-called physical world are both waves, energy, and particle, physical matters. Depending on the mind of observer, we'll come back to that. To understand how the world works, we had to look to its tiniest components. Thus, out of these particular experiments, a new field of science was born called quantum physics. The solid ground we stand on, isn't it? This change was a complete reimagining of the world we would thought we live in, and it led to the proverbial rug being pulled out from under our feet. Oh, really? Einstein never disappointed you? Okay. Um, so we used to think we're planted on solid ground, so how so? Think back to those old toothpick and styrofoam bowl model of the atom before quantum physics came along. People believed that an atom was made of a relatively solid nucleus and smaller, less substantial object either located in or around it. The very idea that with a powerful enough instrument we could measure, calculate the mass of, and count number. The subatomic particles that made up an atom made them seem as insert as cows grazing in a pasture. Atoms seem to be made of solid stuff, right? Classical atom. So this is classical atom looks like. Figure 1a, the old school classical Newtonian version of an atom. The focus is primarily the material. So we dive in the page 10. Okay. Nothing could be further from the truth as revealed by the quantum model. Atoms are mostly empty space. Atoms are energy. Think about this, everything physical in your life is not solid matter. Rather, in all fields it of energy or frequency patterns of information, all matter is more nothing energy than something particles. The quantum atom, electron cloud, that's the nucleus. This is a figure 1b, the new school quantum version of an atom with an electron cloud. The atom is 99.99999% energy and 0.0001% matter. It's just about nothing materially. The real quantum atom. Figure 1c is the most realistic model of atom. It is nothing, so there is nothing there. It is an empty space, materially, but all things potentially. Another puzzle: subatomic particles and larger objects play by different rules. But this alone wasn't enough to explain the nature of reality. Einstein and others had another puzzle to solve. Matter didn't always seem to behave in same ways. When physicists began observing and measuring the tiny world of an atom, they noticed that the subatomic level, the fundamental elements of the atom didn't obey the laws of classical physics the way that larger objects did. Events involving objects in the large world were predictable, reproducible, and consistent. When that legendary apple fell from a tree and moved toward the center of the earth until it collided. Dive on page 12. With Newton's head, its mass is accelerated with a constant force, but electrons as particles behave in unpredictable, unusual way when they interacted with the nucleus of the atom and moved toward its center. They gained and lost energy, appeared and disappeared, and seemed to show up all over the place without regard to the boundaries of time and space. Did the world of the small and the world of the large operate under very different sets of rules? Since subatomic particles, like electrons, were the building blocks of everything in nature, how could they be subject to one of set of rules, and the things they made up behave according to another set of rules? From matter to energy, particles fall off and ultimate vanishing act. At the level of electrons, scientists can measure energy-dependent characteristics such as wavelength, voltage potential, and the like, but these particles have a mass that it is infinite, infinite, okay, infinitesimally small, and exists so temporarily so as to be almost non-existent. This is what makes the subatomic world unique. It possesses not just physical qualities but also energetic qualities. It is possesses not just okay, but also energetic qualities. In truth, matter on the subatomic level exists as a momentary phenomenon. It is also elusive that it constantly appears and disappears, appearing into three dimensions and disappearing into nothing. And to the quantum field, in no space, no time, transforming from particle, matter to wave, energy, and vice versa. But where do particles go when they vanish into a thin air? Collapsing the wave function. So this is the quantum U illustration. The electron could be anywhere. The electron could be anywhere. The electron disappearing into nothing. The electron appears as a particle. Okay. The electron reappears as a particle. So this is the electron. Figure 1D, the electron exists as a wave of probability in the moment and then in the next moment appears as a solid particle, then disappears into nothing, and then reappears at another location. The creation of reality, energy responds to mindful attention. Consider again that old school toothpick and styrofoam bowl model of how atoms were constructed back then. We're not willing to believe that electron orbited about the nucleus like planets about around sun? If so, we could pinpoint their location, couldn't we? The answer is yes, in a matter of speaking, but the reason is not all what we used to think. What quantum physicists discovered, what was the person observing or measuring, the tiny particles that make up atoms affect the behavior of energy and matter. Quantum experiments demonstrated that electrons exist simultaneously in an infinite array of possibilities or probabilities in an invisible field of energy, but only when an observer focuses attention on any location on any one electron does the electron appear. In other words, a particle cannot manifest in reality, that is ordinary space-time as we know it, until we observe it. Quantum physics calls this phenomenon collapse of the wave function or the observer effect. We know we now know that the moment the observer looks for an electron, there is a specific point in a time and space when all probabilities of the electron collapse into a physical event. With this discovery, mind and matter can no longer be considered separate. They are intrinsically related because subjective mind produces measurable changes on the objective physical world. Are you beginning to see why this chapter is titled The Quantum You? At the subatomic level, energy responds to your mind, full attention and become matter. How would your life change if you learned to direct the observer effect and collapse infinite waves of probability into the reality that you choose? Could you get better at observing and the life you want? The infinite number of possible realities await the observer. So ponder this. Everything in the physical universe is made up of particles, such as electron. By their very nature, these particles, when they exist as pure potential, are in their wave state while they are not being observed. They are potentially everything and no thing. Until they observe, they exist everywhere and nowhere. Until they are observed, thus everything in our physical reality exists as pure potential. If a subatomic particle can exist an infinite number of possible places simultaneously, we are potentially capable of collapsing into existence an infinite number of possible realities. In other words, if you can imagine future event in your life based on any one of the personal of your personal desires, the reality already exists as a possibility in the quantum field, waiting to be observed by you. If your mind can influence the appearance of an electron, then theoretically it can influence the appearance of any possibility. This means that the quantum field contains a reality in which you are healthy, wealthy, and happy, and possess all of the qualities and capabilities of the idealized self that you hold in your thoughts. Stay with me, and you will see that with willful attention, sincere application of the new knowledge, and repeated daily efforts, you can use your mind as the observer to collapse quantum particles and organize as a vast number of subatomic waves of probability into a desired physical event called an experience of in your life. Like clay, the energy of infinite possibilities is shaped by consciousness, your mind. And if all matter is made of energy, it makes sense that consciousness, mind in this case, as Newton and Descartes called it, the energy matter according to the quantum model are so intimately related that they are one. Mind and matter are completely entangled. Your consciousness, mind, has effects on energy matter. Because your consciousness is energy and energy has consciousness, you are powerful enough to influence matter because at the most elementary level, you are energy with a consciousness. You are mindful matter. In the quantum model, the physical universe is an immaterial, interconnected, unified field of information, potentially everything but physically nothing. The quantum universe is just waiting for a conscious observer, you or me, to come along and influence energy in the form of potential matter by using the mind and consciousness, which are themselves energy, to make waves of energetic probabilities coalescence coalesce into physical matter, just as a wave of possibility of the electron manifests as a particle within a specific momentary event. We observer cause a particle or group of particles to manifest physical experiences in the form of events in our lives. This is crucial to understanding how you can cause and effect to make change in your life. When you learn how to sharpen your skill of observation to intentionally affect your destiny, you are well on your way toward living the ideal version of your life by becoming the idealized version of yourself. We are connected to everything in a quantum field. Like everything else in the universe, we are, in a sense of connected to a see information in a dimension beyond physical space and time. We don't need to be touching or even in a close proximity to any physical elements in the quantum field to affect or be affected by them. The physical body is organized pattern of energy and information which is unified with everything in the quantum field. You, like all of us, broadcast a distinct energy pattern or signature. In fact, everything material is always emitting specific patterns of energy, and this energy carries information. Your fluctuating state of mind consciously or unconsciously changes that signature or a moment to moment basis because you are more than a physical body. You are consciousness using a body and brain to express different level of mind. Another way to look at how we humans and the quantum field are interconnected is through the concept of quantum entanglement or quantum non-local connection. Essentially, one, two particles can be initially linked in some way. They will always be banded together beyond space and time. As a result, anything that is done to one will be done to another even though they are spatially spatially separated from one another. This means that since we too are made up of particles, we are all implicitly connected beyond space and time. What we do unto others, we do unto ourselves. Think about the implication of this. If you can wrap your mind around the concept, then you would have to agree that you that exists in a probable future is already connected to the you and is in this now in a dimension beyond this time and space. Stay tuned. By the end of this book, the idea just might seem normal to you. Weird science. Can we affect the past? Since we all interconnected across distance and time, does this suggest that our thoughts and feelings can influence events in our past as well as those we desire in the future? In July 2000, Israeli Dr. Leonard Leibovitz conducted a double-blind randomized controlled trial involving 3,393 hospital patients divided into a control group and an intercession group. He set to see whether prayer could have an effect on their condition. Prayer experiments are a great example of mind affecting matter at a distance, but stay with me here because everything is not always what it seems. Leibovitz selected patient who had suffered sepsis, an infection while hospitalized. He randomly designated half the patients to have prayers said to them, while the other half were not prayed for. He compared the result in three categories: how long fever lasted, length of hospital stay, and how many died as a result of the infection. I'm sorry. The prayed for benefited from an earlier decrease in fever and a shorter hospitalization time. The difference in the number of deaths among the prayed for and that prayed for groups was not statistically significant. Although better in a prayed for group, that's a powerful demonstration of the benefits of a prayer. And how can we send an intention out into the quantum field through our thoughts and feeling? However, there's one additional element of this story that you should know about. Did it strike you as slightly odd that in July 2000 a hospital would have more than 3,000 cases of infection at once? Was it very poorly sterilized place or was some kind of contagion running rampant? Actually, those were not praying for patients who were infected in 2000 instead. Unvic knows to them they were praying for a list of people who had been in the hospital from 1990 to 1996. 4 to 3 years prior to the experiment, the prayed for patient actually got better during the 1990s from the experiment conducted years later. Let me say this another way. The patients who were prayed for in 2000 all showed measurable changes in health, but those changes took effect years before. A statistical, a statistical analysis of this experiment proved that these effects were far beyond coincidence. They demonstrate that our intention, our thoughts and feelings, and our prayers not only affect ourselves, our future, but they can actually affect our past as well. Now, this leads us to question: if you were to pray or focus on an intention for a better life for yourself, could it affect your past, present, and future? The quantum law says that all potential exists simultaneously. Our thinking and our feelings affects all aspects of life beyond both space and time. Our state of being or state of mind when mind and body are one. Please note, throughout this book, I will never interchangeable to your having and creating a state of being to a state of mind. For example, we could say that how you think and how you feel create a state of being. I want to understand and that when I use the terms state of being and state of mind, your physical body is a part of that state. In fact, as you will see later on, many people exist in a state in which the body has become the mind, when they are ruled almost exclusively by the body and how it feels. So when I talk about the observer having an effect, it is not just the brain that is work influencing matter, but the body as well. It is your state of being when mind and body are one as an observer which has effect on external world. Thoughts plus feeling produce test tube results. I'll just stretch my leg. Okay. Okay. We communicate with the quantum field primarily through our thoughts and feelings. Since our thoughts are themselves energy, as you know, the electrical impulses the brain generates can easily be measured by devices such as an EEG. They are one of the primary means by which we send our signals into the field. Before I go into a greater details on how this works, I want to share with you a remarkable study and demonstrate how our thoughts and feelings influence matter. Cellular biologist Glenn Rain Fitch, PhD, conceived as a series of experiments to the test healers' ability to affect biological systems since DNA is more stable than substances such as cells or bacterial cultures. He decided to have healers hold test tubes containing DNA. This study took place at the HeartMath Research Center in California. The folks there have conducted extraordinary research into the physiology of emotion, heart brain interactions, and much more. Essentially, they are they and others have documented the specific link between our emotional states and our heart rhythm. When we have negative emotions such as anger and fear, our heart rhythms become erratic and disorganized. In contrast, positive emotion, love, and joy, for instance, produce highly ordered, coherent pattern that HeartMath researchers refers to as heart coherence. In Dr. Rain's experiment, he first studied a group of 10 individuals who were, who were well practiced in using techniques that HeartMath teaches to build heart-focused coherence. They applied the techniques to produce strong, elevated feelings such as love and appreciation. Then, 2 minutes, they held vials containing DNA. Yeah, containing DNA. Samples suspended in deionized water. When those samples were analyzed, new statistically significant changes had occurred. A group of trained participants did the same thing, but instead of just creating positive emotion, a feeling of love and appreciation, they simultaneously held an intention as though to either wind or unwind the strands of DNA. This group produced statistically significant changes in the conformation shape of the DNA sample In some cases, the DNA was wound or unwound as much as 25%. A third group of trained subjects held a clear intent to change the DNA, but they were instructed not to enter into a positive emotional state. In other words, they were only using to the intention to affect matter. The result, no changes to the DNA samples. The positive emotional state that the first group entered did nothing by itself to DNA. Another group clearly held intentional thoughts unaccompanied by emotion also had no impact only when subjects held both heightened emotion and clear objective in alignment were they able to produce the intended effect. The intentional thoughts needs an energizer, a catalyst, and an energy is an elevated emotion, heart and mind working together. Feeling and thought unified into a state of being. If a state of being can wind and unwind strands of DNA in a 2 minutes, what does this say about our ability to create reality? What the Hartman experiment demonstrates is that the quantum field doesn't respond simply to our wishes, our emotional requests. It doesn't just respond to our aims, our thoughts. It only responds when those two are aligned on coherent. That is, when they are broadcasting the same signal. When we combine an elevated emotion with an open heart and conscious intention with clear thoughts, we signal the field of response to respond in amazing ways. The quantum responds not to what we want, it responds to who we are being. Thoughts and feeling broadcasting our electromagnetic signal to the quantum field. Since every potential in the universe is a wave of probability that has an electromagnetic field and is energetic in nature, it makes sense that our thoughts and feelings are no exception. I find it useful model to think and thoughts of the electrical charge in a quantum field and feelings as a magnetic charge in a field. The thoughts we think send the electrical signal out into the field. The feeling we generate magnetically draw events back to us. Together, how we think and how we feel produces a state of being, which generates an electromagnetic signature that influences every atom in our world. This should prompt us to ask, what am I broadcasting consciously or unconsciously on a daily basis? All potential experience exists as electromagnetic signature in a quantum field. There are an infinite number of potential electromagnetic signatures for genius, for wealth, for wisdom, for health that already exists in a frequency pattern of energy. If you could create a new electromagnetic field by changing your state of being, which matches that potential in the quantum field of information, it is possible that your body would be drawn to that event or that event would find you. Electromagnetic potential field in the quantum field. So this is the illustration. The potential in the quantum field, the wealth, health, soulmate, and joy, new line of time, or the joyful event, the past, now, and the future. This is you, your electromagnetic field. Figure 1e, all potential experience exists in the quantum field as a sea of infinite possibilities. When you change your electromagnetic signature to match one that already exists in the field, your body will be drawn to that event. You will move into a new line of time, or even event will find you in your new reality. To experience change, observe a new outcome with a new mind. Quite simply, our routine known thoughts and feeling perpetuate the same state of being, which creates the same behaviors and creates the same reality. So if we want to change some aspect of our reality, we have to think, feel, and act in a new ways. We have to be different in terms of responses to experience. We have to become someone else. We have to create a new state of mind. We need to observe our new outcome with a new mind. From quantum standpoint, we have to create different state of being as an observer and generate a new electromagnetic signature. When we do, we will match a potential reality in a field of that exists only as an electromagnetic potential. Once that match exists between who we are being, what we are broadcasting, and the electromagnetic potential in the field, we will be pulled toward that potential reality, or it will find us. I know that it's frustrating. I know that it is frustrating when life seems to produce an endless succession of minor variation on the same negative outcomes, but as long as you stay the same person, as long as your electromagnetic signature remains the same, you can expect a new outcome. To change your life is to change your energy, to change an elemental change in your mind and emotions. If you want a new outcome, you will have to break the habit of being yourself and reinvent a new self. Change requires coherence. Align your thoughts and feelings. What do your state of being and a laser have in common? I'll make this connection to illustrate another thing you need to know if you want to change your life. A laser is an example of a very coherent signal. When physicists talk about a coherent signal, they are referring to a signal made up of waves that are in phase. Their thoughts, low points, and crest, high points are parallel. When those waves are coherent, they are much more powerful. Wave patterns, coherent waves, incoherent waves. Figure 1F. When waves are in phase rhythmic, they are more powerful than when they are out of phase. Waves is a signal, either aligned or unaligned, coherent or incoherent. The same goes for your thoughts and feelings. How many times you tried to create something, thinking in your mind that in the end result was possible, but feeling in your heart that it wasn't. What was the result of that incoherent, out of phase signal that you were sending? Why is it that nothing manifested? As you just say, as you just saw with the HeartMath study, quantum creating only works when your thoughts and feelings are aligned. Just as the waves in a signal are much more powerful when they are coherent, the same is true of you when your thoughts and your feelings are aligned. When you hold clear, focused thoughts about your purpose, accompanied by your passionate emotional engagement, you broadcast a stronger electromagnetic signal that pulls you toward potentially reality that matches what you want. I frequently talk to my workshop audiences about my grandmother, a woman I adored. She was old, She was old Italian as stepped in a Catholic guilt as she was in a tradition of making tomato gravy to a spoon of pasta. She prayed constantly for things and deliberately thought about a new life. But the guilt that had been instilled in her throughout her upbringing confused the signal she was sending. She only manifested more reason to feel guilty. If your intention and desire haven't produced consistent results, you're probably been sending an incoherent mixed message into the field. You may want wealth, you may think wealthy thoughts, but if you feel poor, you are not going to attract financial abundance to yourself. Why not? Because thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body. You're thinking one way and feeling another way, and when the mind is in opposition of the body or vice versa, the field won't respond in any consistent way. Instead, when mind and body are working together, when our thoughts and feelings are aligned, when we are in a new state of being, then we are sending a coherent signal on the airwaves of the invisible. Why quantum outcomes should come as, as a surprise. Now, let's fill in another piece of the puzzle. To change our reality, those outcomes that we attract to ourselves have to surprise, even astonish us in a way which they come about. We should never be able to predict how our new creations will manifest. They must catch us off guard. They have to wake us up from the dream of the routinely reality that we have grown accustomed to. This manifestation should leave us with no doubt that our consciousness made contact with the quantum field of intelligence. So we inspired to do this again. That's the joy of creative process. Why should you want a quantum surprise if you can predict an event? It is nothing new. It is routine automatic and you have experienced in it many times before. If you can predict if you can predict it, the same the same you produce the same familiar outcome. In fact, if you are trying to control how an outcome will occur, you just went. Newtonian classical physics was about trying to anticipate and predict events. It was all about cause and effect. What does going Newtonian mean when applied to your ability to create? It's when external environment is controlling your internal environment. Thinking, feeling, that cause and effect. Instead, change your internal environment. The way I need water. Instead, change your internal environment, the way you think and feel, and then see how the external environment is altered by your efforts. Strive to create an unknown, new future experience. Then, when an unforeseen event occurs in your favor, you will pleasantly surprise. You just become a quantum creator. You just went from cause and effect to causing an effect. Hold a clear intention of what you want, but leave the how details to the unpredictable quantum field. Let it orchestrate an event in your life in a way that it is just right for you. If you're going to expect anything, expect the unexpected. Surrender, trust, and let go of how it desires event will unfold. It is the biggest hurdle for most overcome because we human beings always want to control a future reality by trying to create how it occurred in a past reality. Quantum creating, giving thanks before receiving an outcome. It's just talk about aligning our thoughts and feelings to produce the result we want, yet in the process letting go of the details surrounding how that event will come about. That leap of faith, and it is necessary if we are to exchange a life of humdrum, predictable outcomes of a joyful life, of a new experience, and quantum surprises. But we'll need to make yet another leap of faith to bring what we want into reality. Under these circumstances, are you typically grateful? You may answer, I'm grateful for my family, the nice home I have, my friends, and my job. That what those things have in common is that they are already in your life. Generally, we are grateful for something and already happened or is this already present in our lives. You and I have conditioned into believing that we need a reason for joy, a motivation to feel gratitude, grounds to be in a state of love that's relying on internal reality to make us feel different internally. It's Newton's model. The new model of reality changes us as quantum creators change something within us, in mind and body, in our thoughts and feelings before we can experience the physical evidence with our senses. Can you give thanks and feel the elevated emotions associated with the desired event before it occurs? Can you imagine that reality so completely that you begin to be in the future life now? In terms of quantum creating, can you give thanks to something that exists in a potential in a quantum field but has not yet happened into your reality? If so, you are moving from cause and effect, waiting for something outside of you to make change inside of you, causing an effect, changing something inside of you to produce an effect outside of you. When you are in a state of gratitude, you transmit a signal into the field that event has already occurred. Gratitude is more than an intellectual thought process. You have to feel as though whatever you want in your reality at this very moment. Thus, your body, which only understands feeling, must be convinced that it has the emotion quotient of the future experience happening to you. Okay. Okay. Universal intelligence. Uh, okay. Universal intelligence and the quantum field. I hope by now you agree on some basic underlying concept of the quantum model. That all physical reality is primarily energy existing in the vast web that is interconnected across space and time. That web, the quantum field, holds all probabilities which can collapse into reality through our thoughts, consciousness, observation, feeling, and state of being. But is reality nothing but indifferent electromagnetic forces acting on and response to one another? Is the animating spirit within us simply function of biology and randomness? I've had conversations with people who hold this view. Ultimately, this discussion lead to a dialogue that goes something like this. Where does the intelligence that keeps our heart beating come from? That is part of autonomic nervous system. Where is that system located? The brain the brain limbic system is part of the autonomic nervous system. And within the brain, there are specific tissues and that are responsible for keeping the heart beating, yes? What are those tissues made up for? Made up of cells. What are those cells made up of? Molecules. What are those molecules made up of? Atoms. What are those atoms made up of? Subatomic particles. What are those atomic particles primarily composed of? Energy. When we arrive at the conclusion that our physiological vehicle is made up of same stuff as the rest of universe, and this folks bump up against the notion that what animates the body is form of energy, the same 99.99999% nothing. That constitute the physical universe, nothing that constitute the physical universe. They either shrug and walk away or come to realize that there is something to this notion, that an under unifying principles pervades all physical reality. Isn't it ironic, then, that we keep all our attention on the 0.00001% of reality that is physical? We are missing something. If this nothing consists of energy waves that carry information, and this force organizes our physical structures and their functioning, then it certainly makes sense to refer to the quantum field as an invisible intelligence. And since energy is the basis of the physical reality, that intelligence I've just described to you has organized itself into matter. Think of the preceding conversation as a kind of template for how this intelligence has constructed reality. The quantum field is invisible potential energy that is able to organize itself from energy to subatomic particles to atoms to molecules, and on up the line to to everything. Some physiological perspective, it organizes molecules into cells, into tissues, into organ, into systems, and finally into the body as a whole. Put another way, this potential energy lowers itself as a frequency of wave patterns until it appears as solid. It is universal intelligence that gives life to that field and everything in it, including you and me. This power is the same universal mind that animates every aspect of the material universe. This intelligence keeps our hearts beating and our stomach digesting food and oversees an incalculable number of chemical reactions per second that takes place in every cell. Moreover, the same consciousness prompts trees to grow fruit and causes distant galaxies to form and collapse. Because it exists in all places and time and exerts its power within us and all around us, this intelligence is both personal and universal. As an extension of this intelligence, we can emulate it. Understand that this universal intelligence possesses the same awareness that makes us individual consciousness or mindfulness. Even though this power is universal and objective, it does possess a consciousness, an awareness of self, and its own ability to move and act within the material universe. It is also completely mindful all on all levels, not just of itself but of you and me, because this consciousness notices everything. It observes and pays attention to us. It is aware of our thoughts, our dreams and behaviors, and our desire. It observes everything into physical form. How can a consciousness that has created all life, that expands the energy and will consistently regulate every function of our bodies to keep us alive, that has expressed such a deep and abiding interest in us, be anything but pure love? We have talked about two aspects of consciousness: the objective consciousness, intelligence of the field, and the subjective consciousness that is free willed, individual, self aware individual. When we emulate the properties of this awareness, we are becoming creators. When we feel resonance with this loving intelligence, we become like it. This intelligence will orchestrate an event as an energetic response to match whatever the subjective mind puts on out into a quantum field with our own matches. It will when our minds will match its mind, when our love for life matches its love for life. We are enacting this universal consciousness. We become the elevated power that transcends the past, heals the present, and opens the door to the future. We get back what we send out. Here's how this orchestration event works in our lives. If we have experienced suffering and within our minds and bodies, we hold that suffering and express it through our thoughts and feelings. We broadcast that energetic signature in the field. The universal intelligence responds by sending into our lives another event that will respond the same intellectual and emotional response. Our thoughts sends the signal out, I am suffering, and our emotions, I am suffering, draw into our lives an event to that to match that. Okay. The part one is long, quite long. I guess I have to stop here and continue my reading tomorrow. So I'll stop here at page 30 of part 1, okay? So it's almost, what time is it? Oh, it's morning now here, so I feel sleepy now. Thank for Thanks for watching with me. I'll continue reading tomorrow. Thanks, Tangerine. Thanks for watching and have a great day to your side. Masud bot, Real Romy, Whitey. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Good night. I'll continue it tomorrow. I'm tired already. I feel sleepy. Okay. So I stop here on this page. I still take up how many page yet for the chapter 2. 1, 2. Oh, we still have 4 pages. Yeah, 4. Okay. Well, should I finish it now? So the next chapter tomorrow. On the chapter 2 tomorrow. Okay. Okay. I only have can I finish this for 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh no. Okay, I have to sleep now. Thanks for watching. Bye.